my elected officials. I live in Harlem. I'm not giving to Harlem. I have with me this morning. I have with me this morning, and I have words from my congressman who is voting. His name is Charles B. Reynolds. But with me this morning is my assemblyman, Keith T.L. Wright, and my senator, known as the warrior, Bill Perkins. Come before me, my assemblyman.
Good morning. Thank you, Hazel Dukes. I am glad to join you here today, and I just want to set the record straight. The record being that we are not against charter schools. I am not against charter schools, but I am here to set the record straight when people misquote, mischaracterize, and vilify the NAACP. It is wrong, and it can't be tolerated at all. When I voted for charter schools in 1998, I voted for full support, but I did not vote for it to be part and parcel to co-location. Charter schools were originally supposed to have their own edifices here in this community and beyond. It has not worked that way. So what has happened, we have created two separate and unequal classes of education. That's what has happened. That's what has happened here in Harlem and beyond. But I am against certain heads of charter schools that actually put locks and chains on my public schools here in Harlem to lock public school parents out of the public school. I am against that. And I am against when certain heads of charter schools talk about Harlem in particular, talking about it that it's a land grab here in Harlem, and that they're going to be Israel and Harlem is going to be Palestine. I have that quote in the paper, written in the New York Post 2 years ago. So I am against that. So what I am for is for charter schools and the education of all our children. And so we create a separate, unseparate, and equal education class. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my assemblyman. And now, the man that they thought they could defeat, but we in Harlem say you don't choose our leaders. You might try to take our space, but you don't take our leaders. The only Bill Perkins.
Thank you very much. I want to first commend Dr. Dukes for her extraordinary leadership, not just on this particular occasion, but on every civil rights battle. She's been in the front, she's been loud, she's been eloquent, and she's been righteous. That's number one. It's very, very important, because when you attack the NAACP, for all intents and purposes, you are making a personal attack on Hazel Dukes. And her record of leadership in the civil rights movement reminds me of 1954, New York City, Ella Baker. Ella Baker was elected to be the president of the New York City Board of NAACP. And what was going on in 1954 that today reminds us of? Same thing. Ella Baker organized the mothers of this community whose children were in public schools because they had a policy that said you could not go to schools downtown, that said that you had to go to schools even if they were inferior in your neighborhood. She organized in order to make sure that those children, including her niece, because she also lived in Harlem, our leaders lived in the community, including her niece, would be able to go to any public school in this city because the public schools in her community were inferior. So what do we have now? We have charter schools. I'm not for privatization of public education. I want to make that clear. But be that as it may, co-location is a form of segregation. Now, they don't want to hear that. But the fact of the matter is that when you put a wall between one kid and another kid, and they're from the same neighborhood, and one kid has the best facilities, and the other kid has inferior facilities, that's second-class treatment. And here comes the NAACP. Because whenever there's a second-class arrangement that affects our children, here comes Hazel Dukes. Whenever there's a second class that affects our children, here comes not only Hazel Dukes, but the New York City branch of the NAACP, the state branch of the NAACP, all of our elected officials, no matter what side we may fall on when it comes to charters. And then, of course, last but not least, here comes the UFT. Because the UFT is here for these kids. They want to demonize the UFT also. They want to demonize the NAACP. But both are here for our children. And so when we do this, we have to remember our history is repeating itself. When you think of Hazel Dukes, think of Ella Baker. When you think of the problems we're having today, think of that these are problems that we've had all along. It's time that there's a lawsuit again to correct them. There was a lawsuit in the past that opened up the schools so that kids can go where they wanted to go. We have to do a similar kind of lawsuit. That's what this is about. Fixing the problem that has been the result of the mayor's decisions. And it's very, very important that we understand that this is the democratic way. This is our democracy. You have a problem with a policy that seems like it's against the law, you get your lawyers, you get your leaders, and you sue. But you don't demonize because you're following the process. You don't call people anti-Semitic because you're following the process. You sue. You sue for the sake of the kids. What more commendable group of suitors can you have than the NAACP? And I'm proud to say that I'm on that lawsuit. And I will be on every lawsuit. And I would encourage all of us to be on those lawsuits. Because if we don't do this, then what happens is people are left to take it to the streets. And we don't want people to have to take it to the streets. We want people to use the process. And the process is a process that can work. But they distract us from using the process when they start calling people names and force us into situations that we're in today. But this lawsuit is a powerful lawsuit. It's going to make a difference. And I'm proud to be associated as a lifetime member of the NAACP. And let's do this in memory of Ella Baker. Thank you very much.